Most people think Chernobyl is just the name of a nuclear power plant that exploded in 1986, but it's actually a town that's been around for over 800 years. Today, while it sits in the middle of a radioactive exclusion zone, about 150 people still call it home, despite it being technically illegal to live there.
Wait, people actually moved back? I thought the whole place was a concrete wasteland frozen in the Cold War. Why would anyone volunteer to live in a radiation zone?
It's a mix of stubbornness and deep roots. Today we're looking at Chernobyl not just as a disaster site, but as a city with a history that stretches back long before the Soviet Union even existed. The first records of Chernobyl go all the way back to 1193. It started as a hunting lodge for the Dukes of Kievan Ruses. It wasn't some industrial hub, it was a quiet, forested area near the border of what we now know as Ukraine and Belarus.
So it was basically a royal retreat. How did it go from a hunting lodge to a major city?
It changed hands constantly between the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. By the 16th century, it became a massive center for Jewish life. By the late 1700s, it actually became a seat of Hasidic Judaism under the Tversky dynasty. It was a spiritual capital long before it was an energy capital.
That's a huge shift. What happened to that community? You don't exactly see Hasidic synagogues in the footage of the modern exclusion zone.
The 20th century was brutal to Chernobyl. Between the Russian Revolution's pogroms and then the horrors of the Holocaust during World War II, the Jewish community was essentially wiped out or forced to flee. The Soviets took over a city that was already mourning its past. In 1972, everything changed. The Soviet Union needed power, and they picked this remote spot for their crown jewel, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. But here's the kicker: the workers didn't actually live in Chernobyl. They built a brand new high-tech city called Pripyat just a few miles away.
Right, Pripyat is the one with the famous Ferris wheel and the abandoned schools. So Chernobyl was the older, smaller neighbor to this shiny new atomic city?
Exactly. Pripyat was the future. Chernobyl was the old world. When reactor number 4 exploded on April 26, 1986, the world stood still. But the government didn't even evacuate the city of Chernobyl until 9 days later. On May 5th, the buses arrived and thousands of people left their homes, thinking they'd be back in 3 days.
9 days? They were just living their lives while a melted down reactor was spewing radiation right next door?
Sadly, yes. Most of those people ended up in a purpose-built city called Slavutech, far from the radiation. Meanwhile, Chernobyl became the headquarters for the liquidators, the soldiers and workers tasked with cleaning up the mess. It became a city of shifts. People would work for 15 days, then leave for 15 days to keep their radiation exposure down.
And the 150 people you mentioned at the start, who are they?
They are mostly elderly residents known as samosli or self-settlers. They refused to stay away from their ancestral homes. The Ukrainian government realized they couldn't force these people out effectively, so they just tolerated them. They live in the less contaminated parts, growing their own food and fetching water from old wells.
It's incredible that after all that, the city is still technically functioning. But hasn't the recent war in Ukraine put the whole site back in the crosshairs?
It has. In 2022, Russian forces occupied the Chernobyl exclusion zone. They actually dug trenches in the contaminated soil, which reports say caused a spike in radiation levels. It reminded the world that this place isn't just a museum. It's a fragile, dangerous environment that requires constant management.
So it's not just a ghost story. It's a permanent administrative challenge. There are still grocery stores and hotels there for the workers, right?
There are 2 general stores and 1 hotel. It serves as the administrative heart for the entire exclusion zone. It's the world's most surreal office park. It reminds us that humanity can't just delete a disaster. We have to live alongside it forever.
It's like the land has memory and most of it is pretty traumatic.
It's a testament to human error, but also to human persistence. The city has survived empires, a nuclear meltdown, and now a modern invasion.
It's definitely more than just a power plant. If I have to remember one thing about the city of Chernobyl, what is it?
Remember that Chernobyl was a thriving cultural center for 800 years before the tragedy. and it remains a place where people still stubbornly refuse to let the story end. That's Wikipodia. Every story on demand. Search your next topic at wikipodia.ai.